Welcome one and all, as Pickstock Racing presents Klaus! If you missed our trailer, let me fill you in on the plan. This is Klaus, this is what he wants to do, and these are the nutters who are going to help him out. I'm sure it'll become clear soon. Klaus here has sat in the paddock for nearly 10 years. As well as the rules for racing, we've decided to set out some of our own. The engine needs to stay in the spirit of the car. An air-cooled, four-cylinder engine. No Subarus, no Porsches, no V8s, no turbos, and no rotaries.
This thing still needs to look like a Beetle. And if necessary, all the standard panels or plastic panels will just bolt straight on.
We're aiming to keep all the suspension points the same. This won't be a Formula 1 car with a Volkswagen body dropped on top. But we're also aiming to do it all ourselves. No bolt-on kits, no off-the-shelf parts, all hand-fabricated by ourselves. So let's make a quick list of things we need to do. Well, it is just a small list. Well, the first thing we need to do is get it stripped. So, let's get to it. It's best to lube everything up. If you're the heir to the WD-40 fortune, please send us some of that 1970 vintage. Let's start by getting rid of these poor excuses for seats. And the rear seats too. They won't be seeing much action from here. And let's get rid of whatever this thing is. Now let's put the interior on a diet. Don't need that, or that. Might need that later, and that's just rubbish. We'll keep these vents for later, if only we could speed up the original job. We're not too worried about getting rid of the sound deadener just yet. Something tells me we'll need that mirror later. We won't be going that fast. Normally it's not recommended to pressure wash an old car, with the rock solid windows and all the rust holes to let the water in, but it's easier to work on a clean car. And to be honest, I couldn't resist how cool these action shots came out. While it might look like we're just poking around here for fun, what we're really doing is trying to find how much rust Klaus has been hiding from us. It's not too bad on the driver's side, but the passenger side is another matter entirely. It seems somewhere down his past, Klaus has had at least 3 accidents, and none of them have been repaired properly. The front is just full of Bondo, and hiding under the right-hand rear guard is a big mess of bog, rust, and what we think is tar paint. So we're going to start with the left-hand rear pillar. First we need to wire wheel it back to see the extent of the damage, and with the magic of television, this rear seam is 2 panels folded over each other, presumably to stop the water getting in. To get the panel we want off neatly, we need to grind the top layer off with the flap wheel on the angle grinder. We've marked out where we're going to cut this 3 or 4 times, but in the end we decided to ignore all our marks and just cut out what looked bad. I'm using a cutting disc in the trusty angle grinder. An air grinder might have been easier to control though. That black blob is 50-year-old expandable foam. Unfortunately, it traps the water coming straight in from the rear window drains. It's held onto that water and caused the panel to rust from the inside out. So there's a giant hole clear of the old rust and foam. Now we just need to make something to fill it. Let's trace around the old panel we just took out on a piece of 1mm steel sheet. The angle grinder and cutting disc make quick work of cutting it out.
You hold it right there.
To help follow the lines of the body, we need to add a contour going lengthwise down the panel. Luckily, the 4th biggest chunk of steel in our shop is the correct diameter. It took 3 hands to actually get the lump of steel into the vise. And now just gently manhandle it around and hit it with a hammer for good measure. Because we took the panel off at the seam, we need to add that back in with the replacement panel. Another lump of steel to clamp our panel to the welding table and get the panel well acquainted with a hammer. As you can see, my camera setup was spot on here. With a bit of guidance from the elusive Allen, here I marked another feature on the panel. Not only is there a hump and a seam, but closer to the window there's a concave line we need to keep in the right orientation. Check how our panel fits and then get to the nightclub part of the project. Lots of awkward grinding. A couple of magnets hold it right where we need it, and we can just tack it in place with the MIG. Because of how thin our panel and the rust surrounding it is, we need to keep the MIG turned low and take lots of passes tacking it in. It doesn't take much to blow holes through the job, and more time with the welder and grinder trying to fix them. A bit more hammering to line up that contour. You can see our bending turned more into a crease, but nothing that can't be fixed with bog. With the flap wheel and the grinder again, we can take all the excess weld off those seams. It needs to be taken slowly as we uncover some more pinholes. Because we forgot to allow for plug welds on the seam, we had to break out the spot welder. This beast weighs nearly 20 kilograms, or 72 cubits for those of you not on the metric system, and will blow holes in just about anything it touches for too long. Just this small job required a coffee break afterwards. Just some more dolly work to do to get that seam lined up, and it's time to get ready for finishing it with bog. A quick going over with the flap wheel and a finger sander, and we're ready for the bog. Regardless of whether you call it bog or bondo in your neck of the woods, it's messy work. So to make it a little easier, I devised a plan so cunning you could put a tail on it and call it a weasel. It consists of marking a profile of the body bump onto a piece of MDF. Then we can use the belt sander to follow the profile to make a rudimentary form tool. Now it's just a matter of slapping a big wad of bog onto the panel and using our film tool to pull it into shape. Nice. Unfortunately it wasn't good enough, so out with the sand to get the chunks off, and that was when we came up with our second cunning plan. 2 weasels for 1 episode. Glue a piece of emery strip onto the initial form and go to town. A quick clean with brake cleaner and a quick lick of paint, and we'll leave it here. Well, now on to the other side. It's the same story, but we can speed it up a bit. I thought now would be a good time to say a few words about this build. Everything you see us use we've either purchased ourselves or borrowed in the case of some of the tools. We aren't sponsored to use or show off any of our products. However, if you find anything lying around taking up space that you want to send us, you can find our address in the description. We are open to the idea of sponsorship, and if you're interested, you're welcome to send us an email about the possibility. With all that out the way, we can move on. So with that well on the way, we can move inside to this gaping hole. This is still more damage caused by that original foam. To try and get a neat match with the original pressings, we made up 3 plates out of 1mm steel, bent and shaped around whatever we had lying around the shop. The holes are there to plug weld into the body as we can't get clamps into place. We need to be careful about welding these in. The original metal is in such bad condition we can still burn straight through and make a big mess. Once each piece is in, it can be gently persuaded with a hammer to sit better into the contours. With the final piece going in a little more hammering, we can tack around the edges to give some support back to the body and stiffen the whole area. All this needs now is going over the finger sander, and we're ready to trim it in carpet. Now the back seat area is perfect, and we don't need to do anything silly like cut big holes in it, but that's exactly what we did. Start with a pilot hole to make sure we're exactly where we want to be. And then 4 holes in the corner to give us that nice radius look. Then join the holes by cutting along the lines with the angle grinder. Run the finger sander around the hole to take off any sharp edges. We've got to protect those digits. Drill a couple of holes in the floor to add some nutserts. A nutsert or riv nut is a way of adding captive nuts to panels without welding. Great for holding covers of panels on, not great for suspension. Now we need something to cover the holes. Using paper and a dirty finger, we can mark the position that the holes need to be. Tape the paper to a piece of 1.6 aluminium, and using our tiny hammer, we can mark the centre points of the holes. Now to cut it out. Well, I guess we won't be using that blade. After magically cutting it, we can use the pedestal drill to drill a couple of holes. That looks like what we want. A quick going over with a belt sand to get some nice corners, and we can move on. The floor we're trying to match is ribbed for pleasure. We might as well try and match those ribs. To do this, we need to bolt the panel down and mark the centre of the rib. Then line the mark up with the centre of our patented rib making machine, a piece of 20mm IHS with one side cut out, and then use a straight peen hammer to form it. We aren't looking for perfection here, just enough to tell which side is up. After a quick going over with black spray can, we can line the inside with foam to keep dust out. What's the point of these door panels anyway? Well, behind door number 1 we find access to the clutch, and door number 2 gives easy access to the starter motor if we need it. Now there's nothing left but to have a cup of coffee. We hope you enjoyed watching Klaus, and stay tuned for episode 2.